So the flawless Evil Dead franchise has another entry in it. Does it live up to the franchise? That's the question.
That's the question.
In the reviews that I've seen for this film and anybody talking about Evil Dead, they always love to bring up the movies. They're always like, oh, Evil Dead 1, 2, Army of Darkness, the remake, they all rule, and the franchise is awesome. But they never bring up Ash vs. Evil Dead. I don't know why that never gets brought up.
Yeah, I don't
because
know.
it fucking rules. And that is part of the franchise.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring it up because it's amazing. And there you go. Anyway, I've watched a bunch of reviews on this, and not once did Ash vs. Evil Dead get brought up.
Huh.
And it's really annoying to me because it's the longest of any of the Evil Dead as well. It's the most content we've gotten from the Evil Dead. So anyway, moving on from that, it rules. So this movie is about two sisters. One has kids. One finds out she's going to have a kid. So the one who has kids lives in a high-rise apartment building. And they are getting evicted because this building is getting torn down within the month. And the sister, who is pregnant, comes home to her sister for help. Whilst there, Deadites get released. Yep. And all hell breaks loose, quite literally.
Quite literally.
It's about all you need to know. It's an Evil Dead film, so, it's not deep. And the storyline doesn't need to be. That being said, this, along with the last one, definitely have the most plot to them.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. They do.
The first two especially have zero plot.
Sure.
They go to a cabin in the woods. They read from the Necronomicon. The Kandarian demons get released, or Kandarian, and people start dying and vomiting and getting cut up. I mean, there's really literally no plot to them. But with Evil Dead, the remake, if you want to call it that, I am more of just like an alternate reality or sequel or whatever the hell. That added the whole subplot line of the addiction.
Yeah.
And gave a reason of why they would stay there. So that gave a cool plot line and character development and whatnot that I really enjoyed. And so did this.
Yes.
So, Kaylee, did the Evil Dead franchise get to remain the perfect franchise that it is with this entry included?
Yes. It did.
What'd you think?
Absolutely. I loved it. I had so much fun. I definitely was I had really high expectations for this, and we saw Beau's Afraid yesterday, and I also had high expectations for that, but was super disappointed. So part of my excitement might be because of that contrast, but I think it was an awesome movie. I don't know. I love the atmosphere. I love the setting. I love the way that all the Deadites look. I thought they were very creepy, and I think there's some really scary scenes, and more than just what's in the trailer, because sometimes that can be a problem where the best jump scares are given away too early on. But I don't know. And I loved the family. I cared about all of them. I had a great time with it. There's tons of blood too, which is wonderful. There's so much blood.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the goriest of the franchise, but it's the bloodiest.
It's the bloodiest, yeah.
For sure.
So much. What did you think?
I thought it was phenomenal. So one of my gripes with the film, which I've said this before in the past, is not a gripe with the film itself, and this is something that happens. But the first 45 minutes of the film, a lot of it is trailer heavy. And I was like, oh shit, is this whole movie just gonna be the best hits of the trailer extended edition, or are we going to start to get some new stuff that I haven't seen from the trailer? And, that's not fair because everything from the trailer is great.
Yeah.
And when it's in the movie, it's great. But I'd seen the trailer 100 times. So I felt like I filled in all the blanks to get to the trailer scenes.
Yeah.
And so when they were happening, I was like, yep, that's, what I expected. And this is the beat for beat trailer remake here, extended. And then we finally get beyond the trailer and we get all stuff that I had not seen before. And that's probably the last 30 minutes or more of the film.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like able to sit back and really enjoy what was happening and to attach it to the rest of the film, being able to disconnect myself from the trailer and being like seeing it as a film, because a film always makes it, a filmmaker always makes his film or makes her film without the intention of the trailer ruining things, right? Like they're just making their film. And you've got to see the film for what it is without the trailer. And everything that's in between the trailer bits is good stuff. And the trailer bits is great stuff.
Yeah.
And then everything beyond that is great too. So at the end of the film, it's like, okay, that was all awesome. Had I not seen the trailer, the film would have been even better for me on this viewing because all that stuff would have been new to me.
Sure. Yeah.
So my only real gripe is that. Would I have enjoyed it if it was gorier? Sure. I'm always the guy that wants more gore. Do I think that a casual horror audience will think this is gory enough? 100,000%.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I'm sure they'll think this is the craziest thing they've ever seen in their life, and that's fine. But I'm, Gorehound freaking deluxe. And it's never gonna be enough for me. But was the Gorehound in me, satisfied enough? Yeah. I think so. Especially in that last, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because up until that, I was kind of down on how little extra gore that we got to the trailer. I didn't feel like we got almost anything more gore-wise from a trailer, and the trailers really weren't that graphic. So I was like, oh, well, that's kind of lame. But they upped the ante from there, and we did start getting it. And basically, okay, another thing that needs to be addressed here. So in this film, there are children, and you have not only the three main kids, but there's also other kids in the building. And it's, one of the gripes that I always have with these kinds of movies is if you're going to put kids in the movie, they have to feel like they're in danger. They have to get hurt. Some of them have to die, some of this and that. And I'm very happy to say that the kids weren't an issue in this film.
No.
There is one kid that I figured would have plot armor and did. But everyone else, all bets are off. Yeah. And that, to me, was great. The film is very brutal at times. There is a creature in this that's definitely tops of the franchise for me, for sure. There are
creature was so cool.
References to other films that are put in here really well and very, very respectfully.
Tastefully.
Yes, tastefully. One in particular, because this is something I have not heard at all since Evil Dead 2, and it's only in Evil Dead 2. So hearing it here, a reference to it, was fantastic for me, and was probably my biggest, I clapped literally. I mean, it was just us and maybe like 5 other people in the theater. But I was like clapping because I was so excited to hear this specific phrase said by a bunch of characters in the film in unison. So very exciting. And, you know, Alyssa Sutherland, who plays the mom of the kids in the film, she has this wonderful face for becoming a Deadite. And if you've seen the trailer, you're well aware that she's the one who becomes the Deadite first. Yeah. She just has she has these very striking features, right? In 2013's Evil Dead, you know, what's her name? Why am I blanking on her name right now?
Mia? The actress?
Yeah. That I love, Jen.
Yeah, I don't remember her name because I'm horrible with names.
Dude, I'm getting mad at myself right now for that. I keep saying Jenna Malone in my head. It's not. I know who Jenna Malone is. Yeah. But you guys understand, like, when you get a name in your head that's wrong, your brain will literally only focus on that name. It's Jenna, not Malone. Anyways. Jane Levy. I knew it was a J. Damn it. Yeah. Yes, Jane Levy. Sorry. She also has these really big eyes, and she's able to emote these really great, this great physicality and horror in her face. And Alyssa Sutherland, she has these really, really like sharp, angular features in her face and these big eyes, and she is a fantastic Deadite.
Oh my god, she was so scary. Like, there's a few scenes with her that, like, there's one scene that it was definitely supposed to be, like, creepy, but I think it scared me the most. It's, like, kind of towards the beginning, which I won't give spoilers away, but it's, like, a really, like, a subtle scare, and I just thought it was so disturbing, and it's just, like, her face really works.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing with this film, like, I've heard some rumblings about, like, problems with some effects being, like, CG and stuff. I had zero issues with any effects in this film. I didn't have
any problems with it at all. Like, I didn't even notice it.
Never.
Like, if there was any issues.
Never. I'm sure there was plenty of CGI enhancements or something used here and there, but I never noticed them.
Yeah. No, neither did I.
I was super into it.
I was just like I was super invested the whole time. Like, nothing took me out of it. I really, like I said, I love the atmosphere. I think, it's so dark, and like the apartment building is so dreary looking, and I really love the setup with the family, like being a kind of modern family. Yeah. And I just thought that they had a great dynamic in the beginning, and throughout the film, but to watch what happens kind of just made it all the more painful. And I also feel like this is setting up, like, multiple, like, films. I feel like we can, like, go further with it, with where this leaves off.
I mean, we could.
Maybe not with the same characters, but it's the
Evil Dead. I mean, it'll continue. Yeah. Whether or not it'll have any connection to this. We do not get any connection to any other film in this. It is a standalone. But Evil Dead always has that capability of taking this premise. I mean, it's the same premise as always, right? The book gets read from, Deadites come, people die. I mean, there's not really anything original in that capacity. The only thing that's original here with this specific Evil Dead film is that we've moved away from a cabin in the woods. Yeah. And we've moved to a high-rise building. Now, how did they utilize the high-rise building? Really, the high-rise building is here to act as a plot device to not allow them to escape easily.
I really liked that. I think it's used effectively.
That is used effectively. Mm-hmm. But did they use the high-rise building in any other way that elevated the film? Not really. So this could, outside of them not being able to get out of the situation easily, is there anything else from it being a high-rise building with tons of different floors and rooms and everything? Did it use that? No. And would I have liked them to? Sure. Would I have liked there to be more possession? So when I had heard originally that this was going to be taking place in a high-rise building, I was like, oh, that's cool. What I had hoped, and maybe my budgetary constraints and maybe the vision of Lee Cronin who made this, I don't know. But my original vision for this film, when hearing that, was that we were essentially going to do something like either The Raid, Redemption, or Judge Dredd, or Dredd, should I say, where almost like a video game where they were going to have to fight their way through levels, and they were going to have to try to get down to the bottom floor. Like they were, somewhere towards the top, and a bunch of people get possessed throughout the building, and it was just going to be pure chaos, and you were going to have, tons and tons of deadites, and there was going to be tons of people trying to get out of the building, and they're all kind of fighting their way through this meat grinder as they try to make their way down because the elevator doesn't work or something. They're trying to get down the stairs, and they're going through different parts of the apartment, and they're like below, That's what I had originally envisioned and was super excited for that. And really, at the end of the day, this could have been set in a cabin in the woods and played out pretty similarly. Okay, I take that back. I'll walk that comment back. I will say this could have been set in a, 2-story apartment building for me, or 3 stories or something, just because there are neighbors in that vicinity. But it being a high rise didn't really affect the film all that much in the way that I had originally envisioned. That's not a down play on the film. It's just that I think with that idea, it gets grander and scaled in my head, and it's a much more intimate film with a few characters in an isolated location that has the potential for not being isolated, because there could be so many tenants, so many people. But this is like a building where people have been evicted, people are moving out, right? So it's like a very small cast of characters. There might be 10 people in the entire fucking film.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problem with the location. I didn't feel like it was underused. I feel like it served its purpose really well, and I like the characters that we do get in the film. I mean, yeah, I guess like you're saying, there could have been like more to it being like specifically a high rise, but I don't know. I just didn't have any issue with it. Like I wasn't, not that you're having like a big issue with it, but it just didn't really bother me that it wasn't like a grander thing.
It's a disappointment for me, but I still love the film. Like I'm in my head thinking about like Die Hard, but with deadites.
Sure.
Right, being able to kind of like going to the roof and getting thrown out windows and scaling down the building, and like as I said, I'm taking this to some like almost action movie level scale, and that's okay. Keeping it more smaller scale and more intimate with a smaller amount of characters does feel more Evil Dead. So I'm not complaining. It's just that my original thought on this film was going to have that kind of magnitude to it, and it's okay that it didn't. I'm just thinking that, was the building properly utilized, or I shouldn't say properly. The building was used fine. Was it used to its full potential? No, for me. But does that knock the film down at all? Not really.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about what could have been versus what is, and what is great. So it's okay that it isn't what it could have been. Because I didn't make the film.
No.
Right? So it doesn't matter. I'm not the person who gets in my head and makes up things and then is pissed off when it's not those things.
Yeah.
Unless the film that they make sucks, and then I'm like, it could have been on this.
Right. Wow.
So there's those things. I just want to bring that up because I think other people feel that way as well when they originally heard it. Like, oh shit, it's it's this high-rise building. It's going to be chaos. There's going to be so many people and so many floors, and there's a cabin in the woods. It's only a few amount of people. You get into a building, you get into the city, then the whole city can become freaking, like half the people in the city could be deadites, and you could be fighting your way through the building. Then you get down to the ground floor, and there's like hundreds of deadites out in the world, and you can just like run through them with a chainsaw.
Yeah, right. I guess that's kind of what I was meaning about, like, I know that, as you said, like, the Evil Dead concept can kind of go on indefinitely, but with this, I feel like there's a potential for it to be, like, I don't know, like, contained in this universe and, like, spreading throughout, like, the city or throughout, like, more populated areas. Like, maybe this is just the beginning, like, ground zero kind of a thing.
Sure,
but
sure.
That was just what I thought, and I felt like the tone of the ending, even though there's some cool, like, linking to the opening and stuff, I just felt like the tone of the ending left it open to that, and I don't know.
Sure, I mean, what you're talking about is, like, demons.
Yes.
Right, demons is all in a movie theater.
Yeah.
And then when they break out at the end, spoilers for the movie, the demons have taken over the city. And so it's supposed to set this up. Unfortunately, with Demons 2, we just move into another building, and it's all contained there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a budgetary constraint in that regard. But you want to see, like, demons taking over the city, and you want to see some massive World War Z type of freaking, demonic possession throughout. And I feel like with horror movies, we are always kind of limited to a budget to some degree.
Sure.
And if you want a bigger budget, you have to appeal to a wider audience. And then by doing so, you have to tone down the horror and lean more into something like action, which is much more audience friendly and much more inclusive. So making the Evil Dead film that I was mentioning and what I would make if I was given an unlimited budget, probably wouldn't hit, and probably would never get greenlit anyway, because the budget would be too high for something massive like that for an Evil Dead film, which, even though it does have a name to it, I don't think it has the box office draw to bring in the kind of money in order to warrant a budget that big. Right. So you've always got to understand the franchise and its appeal. It doesn't have a name like Halloween where it can bring in, hundreds of millions of dollars. It just doesn't. Even though the franchise is, in my opinion, perfect still, and it does have some brand recognition to it. There's a reason that Ash vs. Evil Dead only made it 3 seasons, and the ratings weren't that great, is because it just doesn't have that kind of name to it. It has enough to warrant more sequels and stuff, but they got to keep them smaller and more realistic as far as the audience that's going to be coming to them. So it's a shame. As far as the book endings of this film, I had heard some negatives towards that, like it didn't really even need to be here. I quite liked how the movie opened. I think the opening credit title is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool. Probably my favorite in the franchise. And how the movie wraps up. I'm not going to say what and all of that, but I thought the book endings, the beginning and the very, very end, I really enjoyed that.
I did too.
So I don't have any issue with that. And that could be setting up a sequel, but it doesn't need to, and it totally works. And it just gives us another excuse to, see some cabin in the woods that looks like something out of a classic horror story. The literal classic horror story movie from Netflix, not like a classic horror story.
Yes.
Some broad term.
Yeah, it did look like that. I thought that too.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I could sit here and talk about the movie indefinitely. I think there's so many wonderful things here. I love the look of all the Deadites.
Yeah, they're all so scary and... Oh man. I'm very nightmare inducing. There's a couple, like, I mean, as far as the gore, I know we already talked about it, but there's a couple of, like, kind of, there's some stuff that definitely made me, like, get a little, like, not cringy, but, like, uncomfortable from it. So,
yeah.
There's a cheese grater scene.
I'm dead inside.
That was,
So, nothing makes me wince, but there's great stuff here all
Yeah.
around. I mean, Lee Cronin did a fantastic job writing and directing this film.
Yeah, it
This
was
definitely
amazing.
makes me want to revisit The Hole in the Ground, which I did see, but I have so little memory on. We were considering watching that tonight because I want to revisit Cronin's work. I know he hasn't done a ton, but that's the film that kind of put him on the map and got him this job, I'm assuming. So I would like to compare. I can tell you for sure from just the basic bare memory I have of it, it's nowhere near this level of good. But that's not his fault. This has like an immediate nostalgia to it, and
Sure.
you know, and a franchise brand to it that I love.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Two things we didn't even mention. We're talking so much. It's hard. I always feel like these are going to be short reviews, but it's like no, it's impossible. Two things like the gore and the Deadites and all that stuff. That's a gimme. And with this franchise, those are things you just got to land, and they did. So that's great. But something that the last film did, and this film did. Equally as well, and is such a highlight of these two films, and I cannot praise them enough. The cinematography and the sound design.
Yeah.
These are just like
sure.
crucial to the Evil Dead franchise now.
Yeah.
You know, with Fede Alvarez's last effort with 2013's Evil Dead, the look, the aesthetic of the film through its cinematography is just like it's on a whole nother level. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the look of the first three films, especially like the first, one, and it's this ultra low budget, grainy, film, and it has its charm, right? But as far as modern day filmmaking goes, the richness in the darkness that this film and the last film can achieve, it's incredible to be able to get such rich color palettes out of something so dark and dreary. And I love the look of both of these films so much.
That's what I was meaning about the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's just, and it's great in the last one as well, but like with this, it felt so dark, and it was so wonderfully dark.
Yeah. A lot of Dutch angles, as expected. A lot of shaky camera work that mirrors and harkens back to the originals, but also has its own, its own style, its own. It stands on its own 2 feet, right? Like, it is very much Evil Dead, but it also feels fresh to the franchise.
Very fresh, yeah. The Easter eggs are, like we said, very tastefully done, and nothing's too, like, leaning on it, heavily.
Yeah, nothing's too
like,
winky.
Yeah. It's, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, great shit all around. Definitely a heavy contender for my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is great. I mean, and expected, right? This is expected. Beau is afraid. Unfortunately, it was a bit of a letdown for sure, and won't be making that top lists. But between this, Infinity Pool, and Renfield, we've got some great heavy hitters for this year, and we're only in April.
Yeah,
I mean, we got
so
much more to come.
So much.
But thank God, the Evil Dead franchise has not been tainted yet.
No.
It still is the heavyweight champion of the horror world as far as franchises go, and major long-running major horror franchises. Evil Dead is still the king, baby.
Yep.
Yeah. Hail to the king. All right, guys. Let us know if you see it. You better see it. Come on.
Yeah, you have to see it.
You gotta see it. If you're a horror fan, you gotta fucking support the Evil Dead movies, man. 100%. This is like the king of all horror franchises and needs your support.
Yeah, it's required.
Because we gotta fucking get another one. It's been 10 years since the last one.
Yeah.
Right, the last film.
Oh, I would love to get more, like, for it to become kind of like how Scream is doing right now, and how Halloween did. Like, that would be wonderful. Even though it's not as big of a title for like mainstream audiences, I think it could still get really popular.
If you don't go see this, it's because of assholes like you that we didn't get the much needed Ash vs. Evil Dead season 4 or film or whatever the fuck. Ash vs. Evil Dead was not getting ratings. How the hell is that possible? The show was fantastic. This franchise is fantastic. And us as horror fans, we've got to support this kind of shit. So get out there, you cheap bastards.
Get out there.
But if you can't afford to see it, I completely understand. Times are tough.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But if you can, it's worth your money. 100%.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.